I'd like to call the August 7th, 2023 Long Hill Township School Board of Education meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Long Hill Township Board of Education was given as required by the Open Public Meeting Act as follows. Notice was sent to the Echo Sentinel and Daily Record on September 15th, 2022. Notices were posted on the bulletin board in the first floor entrance hall of the School District Administration Building, Gillette, New Jersey. Notices were filed with the Township Clerk, and notices were mailed to all persons who have requested individual notice pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Here.
Mr. DeJamos?
Here.
Mrs. Daly? Mr. Grosskopf? Mrs. McLennan?
Here.
Ms. Nyquist?
Here.
Ms. Ruvalo? Mrs. Case?
Here. Okay, communications. The only communication that I received was what we have as the first resolution, right, on the
That's correct.
agenda, which was the resignation of Matt DeGiorgio, which I think we're gonna elaborate a little bit more when we get to that part. And that's, okay, thank you, Mr. Alexis. Okay, board committee and liaison reports. Karen.
Okay, like many of us, the Morris County Ed Services Commission did not meet in July, but I do have an update. I think I mentioned last time that they were getting the services of a consulting firm to, the Princeton Public Affairs Group, to put together actually a piece of legislation that will go before, the New Jersey legislature, so that they can purchase the actual building for Central Park School. And if they do it right, it'll work out to be the same as for Middlesex worked it, and it'll be for $1. And there's a lot of advantages to it because they're very restricted in what they can, in the classes that they can offer, and this way they would have more latitude if they were in control of itself. It also works out really well. Under the contract, the government owns the building, obviously, and we run the school for them. We had a major upheaval, refurbishment 3 years ago, and Morris County Ed Services only had to put in first $50,000, and New Jersey put in $2 million, so the building's been brought up to snuff. I mean, it really is quite amazing. I had taken a tour of it. Public Affairs Group also then asked Morris County Ed Services to help them because they were putting together other legislation that would go before our legislature, dealing with getting cameras on buses on the outside. I guess there's been an increase for somehow or whatever. They identified it where cars are passing buses that are stopped. And so they're taking a survey of the districts. And I say that because they're the districts, and they're using the districts that have their own buses. So we wouldn't get surveyed because we don't have our own buses. Governance did not meet, but will be meeting in August. And, we have not heard yet as to whether our proposal for presentation is accepted. I didn't talk to Charlene, I emailed Charlene. So that's it.
Okay. Any questions for Karen? Okay.
The Student Achievement and Curriculum Committee met on July 14th. In addition to the committee members from the board, we also had Mr. Alexis, Mrs. Cologne, and Dr. Jones present at the meeting. We spoke about changes in personnel and student programming connected to special education changes. And basically, just so people have an understanding of it, the student need is determined by the IEP, and that drives student need and then student programming. So as students' needs and their IEPs change year to year, which would be confidential information, you will see program changes. And one simple thing you could think about with that is, as we have students move from grade to grade and change from building to building, those needs are often passed if the student is still eligible for certain needs from building to building. So you'll see on the agenda over the summer, often some changes, related to personnel that are driven by the student need. So we had a conversation about that. We had a beginning conversation of the NJ school report card data specific to our schools. We perform consistent with Watchung Hills Regional High School and our sending districts, but there are areas within it that give us feedback, potentially for room for improvement. There are also areas in it that are combined scores from various data points so that the district is just looking into that information more. I think it'll be something that we return to as a committee. We had an update on the summer programs and curriculum writing. We tend to meet traditionally with the teachers in the beginning of September so that they can speak with us about the changes that they've made to the curriculum. But as we've said earlier, they're working on the writing program, grades 5 through 8, and creating an alignment there. And also in K through 4, they had been working throughout the year in adding targeted instruction in grammar and sentence structure to the K through 4 program. So the teachers were wrapping that up over the summer. And I think those were all the points.
Very good. Any questions for Ann? Okay, great. Alex?
Thank you, Mrs. Case. The Building and Grounds Committee had a scheduled meeting on Friday, August 4th. Unfortunately, I wasn't available due to a prior commitment, but I have been able to informally connect with Mr. Persina, and we talked about the ongoing progress of the summer projects, capital improvement projects, and other things, mostly at Central School. We'll try to reschedule that August meeting, which is intended to be an in-person tour of Central for some time at the end of August and prior to our next meeting. An important item that we have on the agenda, not to steal anyone's thunder, is the potential appointment of a new director of facilities, district facilities manager, who we encourage everyone to support. This would be a full-time position beginning in October. I've been reassured by Mr. Persina that there would be an overlap so that there's a significant amount of passing of the baton. From my calculations, there's 3 or 4 months in between those two contracts, and there's always the opportunity to continue Mr. Persina's engagement if needed going forward. So a more robust committee report will be available at the next meeting, but so far, from what I'm told, everything's going smoothly.
Thank you. Any questions for Alex? Okay, Katie?
Nothing to report on community relations. The Long Hill Ed Foundation had a meeting on July 18th. We had a reorganization. Yours truly is the new president, which was lovely. Our vice president is Yasmin DiGiovanni, excuse me. Our secretary is Julie Costa, and our treasurer is still Anna Kishvali. So we have a little continuity there. We're happy to announce that on Saturday, September 30th, we'll be showing Super Mario Brothers movie at Central School. And hopefully lots of people will be able to be there. It's a really fun event, and good weather aside, hopefully we will be able to do that. And it's a nice tradition that we started last year. November 4th at Riverview, which is the Mount Carmel Catering Hall in Berkeley Heights, we will be hosting a wine tasting, and that's another fundraiser. And then also, it's on the agenda tonight as number 54. From September 18th to October 10th, we'll be collecting old shoes, so sneakers, and for recycling and reuse, and we get a little bit of money for that. And so hopefully with everyone changing shoes over for the new school year, we're hoping that we'll get a nice assortment of shoes. And I think that's all for now. And back to school, for those families that purchased the back to school kits, they will be delivered at the end of August to the district. And when people come to their open house day or the first day of school, they will be distributed to the students. So parents do not get involved in it at all. They don't have to worry about it. It's all taken care of. Other than if they purchased school bags or lunch boxes, that goes directly home. And I think Oh, and there's actually in the fall, we are hosting right before Thanksgiving, a Griggstown Farm Pie fundraiser. And there'll be more information about that. And that is all. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Katie? Okay, I'm going to report on finance. It's not great when you're taking the notes and you don't take them anymore, really, so I'll try my best. So the things that have not yet been reported, so I'm not redundant. One thing on the agenda is we are hiring a new director of technology, and want to congratulate Jack Hartnett on being selected for that position. And I know that Mr. Fitch is going to continue to work with us, similar as Mark is supporting the director of facilities, which is a nice transition. We had an increase in aid in lieu for non-public students, which gave us about a $10,000 increase to district expenditures. Robin can elaborate on any of this if anybody has any questions. At a previous finance committee meeting, we had talked about parent transportation contracts and whether or not we needed to do any additional background checks on that, and we've decided that that's not necessary. We do have all the insurance provided and coverage provided to us by the parents, so we are all set in that space. Milk pricing did go up. That's also on the agenda for tonight. We did get our extraordinary aid amount notification, which is also part of the agenda, and the non-public state amounts as well. We discussed robotics funding from our general account. So we know that the Long Hill Ed Foundation is still supporting a good amount of that program, and that the district has decided to also share in that expense. But it also will be a pay-to-play program for the students, which I think was $100 per student would be the amount for those students participating. Anything else? We did discuss renting a bus for the spring again for athletics, which I
I'm
think
sorry, fall too.
Oh, the fall,
Fall.
okay. So that worked out really well last year. We thought that that was a good system, so we're going to do that, as well as having an ad for a sub bus driver, because Robin likes to cover all the bases, and it makes a lot of sense to do that. And then the other thing that I had on my list was that we did discuss free and reduced lunch students, and just doing a verification of income for the milk, lunch, and busing purposes. Not my best work, but I also think I forgot I was taking notes in the middle of that meeting.
I think you did a great job.
I needed to add
Yes,
one thing. The Ed Foundation was able to collect donations from the public, and we are covering the back-to-school supplies for the students in need. So they all are receiving, if they requested it, if they asked for it, we are covering their back-to-school books and supplies. So
Nice.
Great.
that was
Very
something
nice.
and it was all donations from the community, which is really nice.
Love it.
Great, awesome. Okay.
The only thing I would add is that we reviewed the bills.
Oh, yes,
And
sorry.
so you can sign off, everything is okay.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I think if I don't have any questions, superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. So I'm disappointed I won't have the chance to work with Mr. DeGiorgio longer. I've heard only the most positive remarks about his service as a board member, so I wish Matt and his family only the best. As for next steps, the board has 65 days to fill the vacancy. Robin, as board secretary, will lead the effort with the business office to post the position, advertise it, collect resumes, and share them with all of you. Ideally, we will have candidates who can interview at the September board meeting, and you can make your selection then. Then that candidate, the selected candidate, could be sworn in at the October meeting, provided the criminal clearance has been completed. The position will be on the ballot for the November 2024 election, so that it'll be service for over a year. For agenda items, there are a number of appointments for state-required positions, and one I want to point out is I'm very pleased to report that Principal Vitarello will be the designated school safety specialist, and he'll be attending the training academy next week. It's 4-day training that he'll be doing in Flemington next week. You'll also see several appointments to our instructional administrative staff. We covered a couple of them already. But for the instructional staff, we have the special education teacher, 3 paraprofessionals, a school secretary, some substitute teachers, and then to the new administrative leadership staff in the buildings and grounds and technology. We're pleased to recommend Frank Murgatroyd as the facilities director and our very own Jack Hartnett, who will be stepping into this leadership role in a new position as coordinator of technology services that carries significant responsibilities. We look forward to welcoming our instructional staff on August 29th for the new teacher orientation. I'm pleased to say that several current teachers and paraprofessionals have stopped by to pick me up on my offer to say hello, and I've enjoyed those conversations. And I look forward to meeting the rest of the staff on our opening day on Wednesday, August 30th. Also on the agenda are our revised emergency virtual instruction program, the revised mentoring plan, the student handbooks and codes of conduct for each school, and the evaluation rubrics for teachers and administrators. Last, I want to thank the Long Hill Education Foundation for a very productive meeting in July. I enjoyed that conversation also, and I want to point out the sneaker drive that Katie also mentioned in mid-September, and that's on tonight's agenda. I really can't believe how fast the summer's going, but these things happen every year. The first day of school on September 5th, we'll be here before we know it. At next month's meeting, the district goals and action plans and the board goals will be on the agenda along with the district's professional development plan. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Alexis? I just don't know if my shoes for my children would be acceptable, because they really do run them to the ground. Do you feel
But
like?
they can be recycled.
Okay, recycled, okay. I like that. They live another day or move forward for somebody else. Okay.
But
Next week.
they have to be paired. They have to be paired.
Okay, business administrators report.
Okay, well, you took most of my things. I've got a checklist, and pretty much everything has been checked off. So what I was going to speak about are just some of the general things that we do every year. So you will see on the finance agenda that we are accepting a 50-cent per unit milk cost for next year. That goes up 10 cents, which is allowable by the National School Milk Program. We are accepting our ex-aid of $403,000. We have non-public textbook security, technology, and nursing. The district always works as the middleman in this, and we are accepting those funds on their behalf. We then give out some of them to the ESC of Morris County to handle for us. We handle security in-house. So Mr. Vitorello will be one of the contacts for the non-public in assuring that what they're purchasing actually meets their needs. It's really a good thing. I've worked with non-publics, and it's nice to be able to handhold a little bit because they are within our community as well. Something that we didn't mention, we have Ed Data Services being approved on this agenda. Ed Data Services allows us to do our classroom supply bids as a bid. It saves us an awful lot of money. It costs about $33,000 a year, but it's well worth it. It also keeps us within New Jersey purchasing law, which is really something that we want to do. So we're doing that. I have on there that Mr. Persina and Mr. Fitch are going to continue on to make sure that our transition goes smoothly. They've agreed to work with us through February 1st and longer if necessary, which is a wonderful thing. We have the annual appointments on there that Mr. Alexis spoke about. The only thing that we haven't spoken about already is that we have an agreement with Swing Ed on there to provide substitute services. Lots of districts are using Swing Ed. I learned about it from neighboring districts. Right now, we are approving them to give us kind of a safety net should we need substitutes. They charge us 38% more than our rate. They spend 38%. We're not really sure yet how.
Wait, does anyone have like
Cell phone interference if your phone is close to
I mean,
Okay, let's try again.
Okay.
So Swing Ed will provide substitutes for us should we need them. So we're providing a safety net should we end up really short of subs. We don't know yet how it's going to integrate with how we do subs, but at least it approves us so that should we need that net, it's there. That, and like I said, lots of districts are using them, and it sounded like a good thing. So we're just approving it. It costs us nothing if we don't use them. If we do use them, it's a 38% cost over our subs. So it's just something to have. And that's my report.
Any questions for Robert? Yeah.
I just want to, you said, when we met in the finance group, that basically you heard about Swing Ed from Bedminster. that correct?
Bedminster, but they're also being used by Somerset, North Plainfield, Dover. There's a whole list of people that are using them and using them successfully.
Well, the only reason why I wanted to mention that is, specifically mention Bedminster, is because what you pointed out about the synergy of you being in both districts, like you took to them, that idea of, you got money laying around, let's invest it, let's get our interest, and then you brought that. I mean, already we're seeing the workings coming together.
You know what, even more so than I'm letting you know. I see it almost every day. I look at one thing, look at the other, and go, okay, like, we have to do that together. How does that play? Who do I contact? There are a bunch of things that I can see that are going to work out very well.
It was really very exciting listening to you at the finance meeting, because you seemed so excited about it.
Because as you sit there and you start doing it, you're like, this is really smart. This is smart finance.
Yeah.
Because one is playing off the other. That you see good things there, you see good things here, and I'm sharing them between. They feel the same way. They're hearing things that we do, and they're like, wow, that's great teamwork. So it's great to be able to bring it back and forth between the districts.
I just personally want to thank you, because I know you have double board meetings, double committee sessions, and just running between the two places and everything. So just thank you very much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so happy that you all agreed to it, because I really think it's the way of the future. I think if we pull this off, the one thing that we said is that we'll be presenting next year, not only on governance, they want to do one on shared service.
Oh,
Perfect. Oh. That'd be-
I think, for the members of the community that are hearing this, watching this tonight, or if it goes in the paper, there was some concern in our community because a neighboring district announced that they were not doing some additional busing because they couldn't hire the right amount of bus staff. But we are all set on, knock on wood, for the fall, that we have our bus routes, and we're in.
And I feel way better once we get a sub-bus driver as well, because you know what, it's one thing if we schedule a bus driver to do all these routes, and then, let's face it, things happen. The guy gets sick or something. What do we do?
Yeah.
That was my fear the whole time. It's like, okay, what do? We don't have another bus driver. So let's hope that we get a sub-bus driver, because that really then protects us.
Thank you.
But the fact that we had this taken care of so early is really wonderful. So I just,
Thank you.
for the
Thank you.
community to know that we are in good stead for now, is great.
We're having
Appreciate
backup
it.
for the backup. Good job, Robin. We appreciate it. Any other questions? No? Okay. Any comments from the public on agenda items? No, okay. All right, so resolutions, I'm just gonna start, and I'll let, anybody else jump in. Matt's not here tonight, but, we do wanna thank him for his service, his time. He's, he was a great asset to the board. He had a lot of, institutional memory, had been here for quite so many years, had worked with finance, technology, buildings and grounds. I think, he always brought a lot to conversations, and, I definitely am going to miss having him here, and obviously wish him the best, and also would welcome to have him come to any of our meetings or get any of his feedback. Does anybody else want to mention anything about Matt? That could cover
I'd like to
it
say
all.
he was fabulous in finance. Not only did I enjoy working with him, but I learned a lot from him. He asked fabulous questions and was always looking out for the board, and he helped us to think outside the box, because his questions were prying, and that is
Yeah.
always appreciated.
He's an owner of a small business, and that brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's very easy to work with. It really was enjoyable working with him. And it will be a loss to the board, but we benefited from what he did.
Yeah, I wanted to share my gratitude to Matt, especially early on when I first joined the board. He was very attentive and supportive, and certainly helps all the board members. He's a great collaborator, and I worked with him on technology, on buildings and grounds, I think even another committee, I can't remember at the time. But he was a terrific contributor to the board, and we're going to miss him. So thank you for your service, Matt.
And I just want to say that, like Alex, when I joined the board, he was very welcoming and gave me some good pointers when I needed to be given some pointers. And he also, he led us in the finance committee wise through some rocky waters, a lot of change, and also through COVID. So I definitely respect the work that he did, and we're gonna miss him,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'll echo that. Matt, you'll be missed.
Okay. So we're gonna start, we'll go through a couple. We have limited bodies per category here tonight. So I'm gonna have, Karen, will you move in, resolutions number 1 and then, minutes number 2?
You want me to read number 1?
Yes, that's nice, thank you.
Resolved that the Long Hill Township Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, accepts the resignation of Matt D. Gregorio, excuse me, as a member of the Long Hill Township Board of Education, effective August 1st, 2023. The board expresses its gratitude to Mr. Giorgio for his service to the Board of Education.
Thank you.
And so move item 2.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
That, Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly? Mr. Grosskopf? Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Mrs. Nyquist?
Yes.
Mrs. Rubelo? Mrs. Case?
Yes. Okay, let's do financials, numbers 3 through 18, and then special services, numbers 19 through 26. Ann, would you move those in?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly? Mr. Grosskopf? Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Mrs. Nyquist?
Yes.
Mrs. Rubelo? Mrs. Case?
Yes. Next, we have personnel. Thank you. We have some resignations. Thank you to those people for their service, and then also some appointments, so welcome them to either new positions or to the district in general. So Alex, will you move in personnel numbers 27 through 42 and curriculum 43 through 44?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly? Mr. Grosskopf? Mrs. McLennan?
Yes.
Mrs. Nyquist?
Yes.
Mrs. Rubelo? Mrs. Case?
Yes. Okay, policy numbers 45 through 50 and others, numbers 51 through 54. Katie, will you move those in, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? They will take the sneakers. Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. DeJamos?
Yes.
Ms. Daly? Mr. Grosskopf? Mrs. McLennan?
Yes, but abstain from 54.
Ms. Nyquist?
Yes.
Ms. Rubelo? And Mrs. Case?
Yes. And thank you to the policy committee for their work, as always. All right, any items for discussion? Unfinished business? New business? Any comments from the public? No? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Thank you.
Thank you.
Boy, whoa.